You ready, Joe?
I'm ready, Paul.
Okay. Hello, this is Paul with All About Neurofeedback. I'm sitting today with Dr. Joe Serpe, who we've gotten to know each other quite well over the years as we've worked together. But he has a really great story about his journey and how he got started with neurofeedback and how he's helped people. So I'm going to let him take it away, but could you maybe start with just a little bit about yourself and what you're all about?
Sure. Sure. Thanks, Paul. I really appreciate you and the opportunity to share information with people. My background is I'm a chiropractor, and I started back in 1993, and the first half of my career was what you would imagine chiropractors to do. I came across a couple cases about midway through my 30 years of practice, and I was having a hard time helping those people. So I joined up with a program that taught me the neurology of how to help people. And so I went through a 2.5-year program, a postgraduate program, to learn how to become a functional neurologist. And that was wonderful stuff. But I also came across neurofeedback, and that was a game changer for me. Instead of having people come into my office over and over to do all these exercises for 2 hours, I was able to get very, very clean, predictable results using this process called neurofeedback, which we're going to talk about today. And it really changed my life. It changed patients' lives. And it was something that was, foundational to what my practice became, which was nearly 100% neurofeedback. And what it is now, since I am semi-retired, I stopped my practice up in Illinois back in 2021 and moved down to Florida and found that I just really have to keep helping people. It's in my blood. My wife called it. She said, "You are going to be so bored if you're not working with people to make their lives better." And I said, "Well, we'll see." And sure enough, she was right, and here I am.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, no doubt. It was great to come, start working together again. So I appreciate that.
absolutely.
So for those who are unfamiliar with neurofeedback, how would you describe what it is and its potential benefits and how it all works?
Absolutely. So neurofeedback is a very interesting technology that's backed by decades of research and clinical use. And I think to help explain it, I've got to backtrack a little bit and talk about why it's doing what it does and how it helps people. So the way that our brains work is they're made up of hundreds of millions of cells called neurons. And there's some support cells in there as well. But these neurons are our electric processors. And they generate chemicals, which we'll talk about. Those are called neurotransmitters. So these cells, they work together in communities called networks. And they share information and they accomplish tasks for us. It could be processing hearing or visual information or coming up with a poem or listening to music, whatever it might be. Our brain is constantly processing information, and it uses electrical signals, and we call those brain waves, to accomplish all of this. So these brain waves can be, they can go out of sorts, if you will. They can become imbalanced and go out of sync. And there's many, many reasons that can happen. It can be trauma-based, whether it's physical or emotional. It could be aging process. It could be malnutrition. There are any number of reasons. Even just stress overall can be something that over time leads people into anxiety states or depression states. So neurofeedback is a technology that interfaces between a computer and your brain, and it helps teach your brain where it's at and teaches your brain how to make changes to get where it needs to go. So that the technology can detect brainwave activity in real time, and it can show the brain through a visual system or auditory feedback why it's not operating the way it should be to be functioning ideally. And over time, you can teach the brain new skills. So that's a lot of stuff to process, but in general, neurofeedback feeds back information to the brain to teach the brain how to become more efficient. An example, someone who has a hard time focusing. They're very distracted, they're very impulsive, they have these thoughts that sort of come up or bubble up with them, and they don't know how to stop and slow down and decide where to go with their focus, right? Neurofeedback can catch these moments of abnormal brainwave activity and cause them to stop. And when the brain pauses, it becomes aware that it can make a change at that point. And neurofeedback uses that technology to accomplish that. So over time, you're really teaching someone a new skill. And like you're playing the piano, if you never played before, you're going to look at the keys and go, I don't know what's happening here. But after a year of practice, you'll play a song. Well, after some time,
it doesn't take a year of neurofeedback.
Not at all. Not at all. It could be weeks to months, depending on what's going on, where you start to impart the changes that you're looking for. And the really neat thing about it all is not only is it very predictable. I mean, you can watch the brain as it's changing because we record these brain waves and we find out what's occurring, but those become permanent for people. Very often people, when they go through neurofeedback, they probably don't need to do it again. Maybe some touch-up care if something else happens to impact their brain in a negative way, but very often those changes are well-grounded in long-term positive responses, even when you're done with neurofeedback. So,
okay.
Unlike a medication, right?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that because most people think, because, the media and their doctors, everything else,
Sure.
They represent mental health issues as chemical imbalances.
Right.
Or therapy being the solution, which I know it's very helpful, but it's, right? So talk a little bit about that. Like, what's your opinion on, this electrical idea of the brain versus the chemical idea?
Sure. I mean, our system, our healthcare system, modern medicine, if you will, is sort of predicated on let's distill this diagnosis, and then let's impart some chemical change to get a shift in what's going on for that person. Often that's an SSRI or some other neurotransmitter influencing medication that is, they're replete with side effects, right? They don't just, you're going to take this and everything's going to be better. We all know there can be anything from sexual side effects to suicidal thoughts to, not even working or working for some time and then, sort of fading. We're looking at the problem, if you will, through this myopic little narrow tunnel, right? This little lens when we're thinking in terms of let's shift the chemical side of the brain. We even know there's recent studies, science has shown that it's not actually changing the neurotransmitters. It might actually just be decreasing inflammation as to why those medications have the influence that they do. So let's step back a little bit and let's look at the brain for how it works. And if we understand that, yes, your brain is an electrical chemical organ, but electrical activity is king, right? It's where things are at, and the chemical side of things comes secondary and has an influence. But if the electrical activity is off, it doesn't matter what you're doing chemically, you're never going to get where you want to go, right? How many patients have I seen over the years that have been on 4 or 5 different medications, some to even counteract or counterbalance side effects from the initial ones, and they're still no better, and they're still struggling. And then with
So
neurofeedback,
what do you do in a case like that? You don't obviously tell them to stop medication right away. Like,
no, not at all. So
yeah.
So we don't want to. Yeah, we don't want to pull the rug out from somebody, right? They have some level of support, and they're working with a prescribing physician, and they have a relationship there. So we want to be honoring to that. But we can introduce neurofeedback in spite of them being on medications, which is the nice thing, right? We can still impact or impart positive change electrically in the brain. And over time, what people usually do is they start feeling better, and they kind of begin to question, how much of this medication do I need? And I usually say, just go back to your prescribing physician and have a heart-to-heart conversation and talk with them about what your options are. Can you reduce? Can we change? Can we remove? That's between you and them. But you're going to start to feel better with the neurofeedback as the electrical side of the brain kicks in and becomes healthier.
Okay, cool. So what kind of conditions are typically affected or can be, you can expect some positive outcomes for using neurofeedback?
Great question, right? So there are hundreds of studies in the realm of everything from attention deficit, emotional, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideology, PTSD, anger issues. It has been helpful in my practice for people that have had concussions, people that have insomnia, chronic pain. So all of these things are nested or centered in your brain's processing of information. We know that people who are in chronic pain, like those fibromyalgia type of people who are in decades worth of chronic pain, actually have a reduced brain volume. And what that means is those processing cells, those neurons that we talked about, there's actually less of them. The brain shrinks, sometimes significantly. So, we've helped Alzheimer's, and I've helped someone with chemo brain, which is a real thing. People that go through chemotherapy. The person I'm thinking of is she was a CEO of a local company, and she had gone through breast cancer care. And she said, if the board knew how poorly I was functioning, they would let me go today. So she came to me a bit desperate for something to change. And within 3 months, she was back to herself. And wow. she had gone through that care about a year prior, and she was stuck in this rut for 12 months. And she had enough people around her to sort of hide that, but she was capable after 3 months to not need any of that additional support. She said, "I am back." So
that's awesome.
pretty
I've
amazing.
Actually another one of our clients does neurofeedback out of Georgia, and she was able to help somebody very quickly and very significantly that was struggling with the after effects of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Long
Absolutely.
COVID, I guess, if you will.
Sure.
But it totally changed her back to who she was before, which is really cool, right?
Yeah. When people think, Paul, of brain fog, right? We all think, oh gosh, some days it feels like the world's up here and I'm back here and I just feel fuzzy in my thinking. That really is a sign of inflammation. It's a slowed processing in the brain. And there are a number of ways that you could address that, but neurofeedback does a great job of reorganizing everything, right? And helping the brain to get information that it needs when you recall a thought or you try and remember a word. It should be instantaneous. When it's not, when there's that sluggish feeling, that's that brain fog, that's serious stuff, because that could be the beginnings of dementia or other cognitive processing issues over time.
Yeah. And I guess the other obvious benefit is like even people that don't have maybe a mental health condition, but they want to do better at work or sports or that kind of thing, right?
For sure.
I know the military has been using it for, maybe not specifically for brain trauma or TBI, although they might be, but right. I know that they were using it for some of their special forces operators in order to improve performance, right?
Sure.
And all kinds of stories about business people and CEOs and just average everyday people that want to do better at their job or whatever, right?
Absolutely. The people out there that are long-term meditators, they can control their heart rate and their physiology and so on. They've really been doing it for decades. You can cut the learning curve on something like that down to months if you do the right training. It's another area that I want to point out that I think is pretty significant is people who've had some long-term or significant either sexual, emotional, or physical trauma. I've treated a number of women who have had significant issues with their entire lives because of things that they experienced when they were younger. And that trauma is not just something that's impactful of your brain, but it's something that can impact heart function and digestive function and so on. So there's something called alpha theta training, which can significantly help somebody process past those types of hurts. I've worked with people who've had addiction, significant repetitive use issues. And when you do neurofeedback, my experience has been very positive in this realm. I certainly have to make sure that somebody is being managed properly medically. But if I take on a case like that, I've seen, and studies show this, about a 40% bump in sobriety so that they can consistently not feel those urges to use. They feel more at peace. It's pretty significant what you can do to help somebody on that level too.
You think about the, I guess, social issues we're having in today's world.
Sure.
And the homelessness and that kind of the addictions. It sure would be cool if there was some kind of a government program that incorporated neurofeedback to help these people.
Wouldn't it? I totally agree with you. I know there have been, it's difficult to do this with school systems because you've got boards and there's a lot of different layers to the bureaucracy there, but there have been some school districts that have utilized neurofeedback for students. There have been prisons that have utilized neurofeedback to help people process emotionally. It's pretty significant. We live in a time right now, Paul, that I'm sure everybody's aware. It's tough for people. A lot of people are struggling with anything from just feeling isolated to lacking purpose and motivation, the anxiety that gets produced from that, and then the ensuing depression that comes from it. There's a lot of people out there like that, and they're struggling, which is why I think neurofeedback is just a vital piece to the puzzle that can help so many people. They just don't know about it, right? And that's the rub, and that's why we're here.
That's a great question. Like, I kind of have some feelings about this myself, but without prompting you, when you think about why it's not well known, why? Because it's been around for 60 years?
Yeah, I will give you my opinion on this. I think the system, and that being the medical system, is so entrenched in wanting to use chemicals. And this is how you're taught, right? In the medical world, is we're going to use this tool, and here's how it works. And I'm going to get my education through school, but also the pharmaceutical companies, and they're going to keep coming in and going, here you go, here's what the research shows. They have hundreds of billions of dollars to spend in this realm. And neurofeedback, it's almost homespun, right? it's very down to earth in the sense that it's not being backed or researched by some big pharmaceutical company. There's no huge, profit for investors and so on. It is something that just helps people, and because of that, it sits on the sidelines. And it's frustrating because there is research and it does help in all these areas that we talked about. But getting that word out is probably the biggest lift that I have when it comes to how do I make this happen, right? How do we get people to understand?
Right. I think some people think it's expensive, right? Mm-hmm. And, in my opinion, and I'm a believer in counseling and therapy, by the way, but
sure.
Aside from that, if that's all you're doing to try and get past an issue, you can be sitting in that chair for years, right?
Oh, sure.
And you think about the cost of that compared to getting something resolved in a month or two that outside of that might never have been resolved, right?
Exactly.
So you think about even just being able to perform better at work, how much is that worth? Like, if you could make decisions better and think clear and be more positive and happy, how does that affect the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
And so, and not that it's so, especially with a program like yours, or it's not really that, it's not cost prohibitive. You have some financing offerings if it is, but you're in a position where you can help most people, I would think. Right?
Yeah. I feel that's the case for sure.
So, when you think about your experiences that you've had with your clients, do you have like a particularly memorable success story with one of your clients?
You know what? I think there's dozens upon dozens of them that I can share with you, but
and you have a lot of them on your YouTube channel too, by the way, right?
For sure. I've tried to highlight that. People have been really, really, when it comes to asking someone to like tell their story on a health level, sometimes people are a little shy about that, but the people that I worked with were overwhelmingly positive and wanting to like let the world know about how they were helped. So I think one of the stories that really is personally impactful to me because it's a relationship to myself is of my nephew. His history is he struggled with school. He definitely in sports, big guy, had a lot of potential. But he sustained, I can't tell you how many head hits, right? How many concussions. And you don't even have to have a concussion to impact the brain in a negative way. Just getting jostled around and having your brain strike the inside of your skull can be enough. So nice guy, but very shy, didn't really talk, was kind of in his shell, was having a hard time. What am I going to do with myself, as an adult? Where am I going to go in life, and so on? So he came in, mom and dad brought him in, and we did neurofeedback from him. And he went from being a guy that probably wouldn't even make eye contact. And mind you, he's like 6 something. He's huge, right? He's a big guy. To someone who would look you in the eye, smile, talk to you, engage with you. And he actually got so well. Prior to this, he was pretty much sitting at home. He got so well that he's holding down a great full-time job. He is engaged. We're going to his wedding next year.
Awesome.
We tell him all the time, like, you just completely bloomed when you came to see us. And it was amazing to see because, that's my nephew, right? That's very important to me. So seeing that kind of thing happen to personally.
How did you feel in the moment with that?
Oh, gosh. Everyone was celebrating, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, everybody. And his fiance is such a sweetheart. And we talked to her about it too. And she's like, well, thanks for fixing him up because he's mine now. Like, all right, there you go.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So what are some of the biggest challenges you face in your practice? Like, how do you overcome them?
So I think the biggest thing that I face is people will say, hey, I'm contacting you because I'm interested in neurofeedback. And I usually ask, well, what do you know? And they pause and they say, not really anything. I mean, I've heard of it, or maybe I've watched a couple of videos, but I really don't understand it. So for me, the biggest challenge I see is purely one of education and understanding. So if you have a headache, you can walk over to your medicine cabinet at home and pop an ibuprofen, and probably within the hour that headache's going to be diminished or gone, right? You get that there's no education there, right? You've been educated by TV. But when you talk to people about connecting their brain to a computer-brain interface at home and shaping how their brain is using its resources electrically, people just kind of gloss over and go, I don't know what you're talking about. To me, it's pretty simple. It's learning a new skill, right? It's teaching the brain how to get efficient, right?
And
how to learn.
There's no pain or invasive stuff.
Not one bit. Not one bit.
Some systems do a little bit of microcurrent, but that's not what you do, right?
No. And they're really, you don't feel a thing. And I will tell every teenager who might be watching this ever that we are not brainwashing you, okay? This has nothing to do with your thoughts. We aren't recording your thoughts. We are simply helping your brain to become electrically efficient, like tuning up your car. How efficient can it get so that it runs smoothly? And when you do that, amazing things can happen. So,
okay. Well,
go
let's
ahead.
be real here. Okay, it's not 100% effective, but like how many, like out of 100 people that you've seen, you say how many people get significant results?
Oh, at least 75% or more. It depends on the condition, of course. So I'm pretty selective. So I will tell somebody who has advanced dementia that I probably won't even take the case on. If it's too far gone, there's too much damage, right? If I have somebody at the beginnings showing some memory loss, let's hit it hard. Let's get something to happen. People that have chronic long-term conditions that aren't going to go away, like multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's, you can help manage them. Even autism, you can help manage that. You're not going to eradicate autism, right? But with things like anxiety, depression, attention deficit, I've seen some very high response rates. And I often tell my clients, I say, listen, if I could make it 40% better or 50% better, is that good enough for you? Is that worth it? And everyone's going like this. Absolutely. We've struggled for so many years trying to look for something that will help, from accommodations in school to various medications. And we're just kind of scratching our heads as to what to do. So I try and go into it very realistic with people so they understand what's possible for that specific case. But I always hold hope that amazing things are going to happen because I've seen it over and over again.
What about academic performance? I know that it definitely is effective for that, but would you say that that's one of the things that it's really effective with?
Yeah. Academic performance, test taking, being able to recall information while you're taking a test, all of that has really improved quite nicely. Executive processing. As a matter of fact, there's a couple studies out that show that you can increase IQ by somewhere between 10 to 12 points with neurofeedback training. Now, do I ever make promises to people that that's going to happen with them? No. But does it make sense that if you make the brain more efficient, that your natural talents are going to bubble up to the surface? Sure. And that could be an increase in IQ for you. It certainly can be, I can take tests now. I had a 14-year-old kid come to me at the end of a summer after he had gone through care, and we were just kind of doing an exit interview with him. And he said to me, "Doc, I read 5 books this summer." And I said, "Yeah?" He goes, "I've never sat down to read a book in my life." and he goes, "You wouldn't believe the worlds that you can explore when you read." I was like, there you go.
Yeah, no doubt.
That was a huge success. So
yeah. So when you think about all the technology that's coming and that's here, what's your feeling on how neurofeedback has evolved over the years and where it's going? Like, do you think these meditation apps on the phone, although beneficial, do you think that's anything like neurofeedback?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of you can access all sorts of computer games and guess your mental age and all of those things. You see it all online. That is not neurofeedback. True neurofeedback, you need to be connected to a computer, and you need to have some real powerful software recording and guiding those brain waves. I think the technology is advancing, but I think there are some things out there, like there's a band that you can wear across your head. Those are very simplistic, and they just don't quite get the job done. Playing a game on the computer to try and improve your memory or your efficiency, that is not neurofeedback. Neurofeedback is pretty advanced technology and is very powerful. It's come a long way over the past, even couple of decades here, this century. You can do testing called brain mapping, where you can record EEG information in the entire brain. Now, I used to do a lot of that, but I don't do it now because I work with people remotely. So I have a different method of assessing where they're at and determining where to go with them. But brain mapping is a wonderful tool, and it can really help you be more efficient in choosing the protocol that you want to start with and kind of shaping a program or a plan for somebody. I use a different assessment system now. We've got a system of questionnaires that we have people answer, and then I do a pretty good interview. And then when they have the equipment, I can record all of their EEG, all of their brainwave activity, and know how they're responding. So I can tell if what I'm doing is efficient for them. And I have them, they're always sending prompts to give me their progress every time they train. So I understand, how are you doing in this area or that area? And we pick those goals for them per the individual. But I think the technology is very powerful. To me, it seems simplistic, but it's not. From a use standpoint, when I send somebody the equipment, I've got a couple of short videos, and I get on the phone with them, and I teach them how to get connected and get started. And then I have them take pictures of their placement so I understand that they did the right thing to set themselves up. So there's no question that they are able to do the setup at home. And then I'll know for sure based on the recording if they were doing the right job and they're getting what they needed to out of it. And then we just change protocols as they progress. So,
yeah, I think the other benefit to at-home neurofeedback, there's I mean, they don't have to travel. They can do it from the comfort of their home. They can train multiple family members, all those kinds of things, right?
Absolutely. I mean, imagine what's gone on with the weather that we've had around here recently, right? You get a massive snowstorm or an ice storm. You're not going to the doctor's office, or if you're doing it at home, maybe you're in school all day, and then you've got a sport that you're going to do. So when are you going to go to the doctor's office, right? If you do it at home, you can choose the time that works best for you. You can choose the days that work best for you. There's no travel time. There's no wear and tear in your car. You don't have to balance schedule between 3 different kids. It's very, very efficient. And I often have multiple family members that are training at the same time. Right. It just makes sense. So.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about education being kind of the stumbling block. So how do you address that? How do you educate your clients? I know you have an extensive onboarding process that I think is really good. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and what's involved and how they learn about neurofeedback through that process as well?
Sure. So, as far as onboarding, we have them, I send them a link so that they can go online and answer a couple of different types of questionnaires. And these are a blending of standard questionnaires that are out there, but they're specific to neurofeedback. So I look at personality. So I want to know, is someone, perfectionistic? Are they competitive? I want to know their personality. I want to understand how they function cognitively, how they function emotionally, and how they function socially. So, and then I want to know about their physiology. So I want to understand if someone has a thyroid condition or some other health issue that may be negatively impacting what we're trying to do. Well, let's figure out how to address that as well. So this process of mapping out how their brain is functioning, I'm able to generate about a 15-page report for them that really is very insightful and gives them a lot of good information about all these different aspects that we just talked about. It helps me because clinically it gives me a guidepost and helps me understand where to go with someone. But I think it helps the person understand themselves as well. When someone comes away, like this one couple, and the wife says, "I think you know my husband better than I do," because as we were talking, she just kept saying, "Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you know that about him. We've just met." It's a pretty amazing process to go through to understand somebody at that depth. I feel like you could really take care of them well,
Nice.
Yeah.
And then, so I know you offer a free consultation, right?
Yep.
Is that a 2-step? Like, if I remember correctly, you're doing a free consultation. If they seem like they might be a good fit, then they do the assessment and you go through that with them before you accept them for care.
Right. I really want to make sure that I am doing my diligence when it comes to understanding if I can help somebody or not, right? And I do a free consultation because honestly, people don't know what this is, and I think it takes some time to help educate them. So I explain everything, I answer all of their questions. I make sure that they understand what it is that we would be doing for them, how it works, how they're going to benefit from it, and so on. Or if it's not a good fit, I tell them that as well. There have been times where I've just said, I don't think this is the right time or the right option for what you're looking for. So it's important that we connect in the right way. Like with any doctoring, you have to make sure that you are assessing the needs of that person and understanding whether or not what you offer is going to be a benefit to them. So, for sure.
Okay. And you have ebooks and videos and all that kind of stuff too, to
get
people to really understand. In fact,
I hope
link that ebook page to your profile so people can download it.
Wonderful.
And also maybe a scheduling link as well, so people can book right in and get an appointment with you. Find out if this is a good fit for them.
That'd be great. The opportunity to help somebody and to work with them and change their life is what this is all about, right? Foundationally, let's improve the world. Let's help people in areas where they kind of feel frustrated and let them move on with their life so that they can, get everything that they want out of it. So what advice would you give to someone that is considering neurofeedback for the first time? Yeah, I think I would make sure that I understood what neurofeedback was And there's a lot of, I mean, I have information about it. There are other areas online that you can look and understand just to get a sense of what it's about before you find somebody, right? You can look locally and find a practitioner. And I know, there are services. I think you're putting something together yourself, Paul, that helps people link this information and understand what resources are available to them locally. I can work with anybody, nationally. So, the way that my practice works is it's easy to ship information out. It doesn't matter if you're next door or if you're in California for me. So, I think people should get educated, and then I think they should do a consultation and just make sure that they're having their questions answered, and that they're exploring what this is about. And so they're going into it with completely open eyes,
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to, say about neurofeedback or your business or anything else that we could let people know about?
I appreciate that. I think I am a little bit of a smaller practitioner as far as how many people I take on, and I feel I do that because it allows me to get focused on people in a very nice way, right? I'm not overwhelmed in my schedule, but I think there's a big need for other people to be able to access neurofeedback. So as far as I'm concerned, I think I've said all the things that I can think of saying as far as helping other people and so on. And
Well, on the site, this video will be sitting on a page, and you're also going to be creating a blog that will go under that page. So,
Sure.
Look out for that for everybody that's interested. And, this will go on YouTube, and you can use it as well. And,
Wonderful.
Let's get the word out. I mean, the whole purpose of All About Neurofeedback is to connect,
Right.
people that are interested in neurofeedback with practitioners and to educate them. That's our whole
Sure.
purpose of this. Right?
Sure. I appreciate that. I mean, on some level, I hope videos like this help people get to know me or other practitioners and understand, how we operate, right? When people's biggest fear is I don't know this doctor, am I going to like them? So they're always looking for that referral, right? So they at least have some kind of introduction to the character of that person and what it's going to be about. And hopefully this video and other videos like it give people that feeling that they can understand a little bit more about what they're potentially looking into and the people behind it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it.